Hey, so I got this idea that I was going to build the biggest Necromunda building that I've ever built. And instead of doing sort of a beginner-friendly build-along with instructions on all the most basic stuff, I was just going to capture what I'm doing and just talk about little parts of it and just kind of hobby stuff in general. So I got some MDF from an old piece of furniture and I doubled them up and I started looking at my junk and I started just dry fitting all my junk I have big bins of just busted toys. What I usually do is I go to Goodwill by the pound, and I used to just find all kinds of stuff. I would take a plastic grocery bag with me and fill the grocery bag with just parts of games and toys that I thought could be useful for building with. So like the silver part here, I think it was part of some truck, car carrier or something, way out of scale for 28 millimeter. But as soon as I saw that, I was like, that's Hive terrain. That looks like Necromunda bulkheads and ladders to me. And then this toy garbage truck, the trailer portion, it looks like it could be some sort of, sci-fi thing. And what I do is I'm just taking containers and pieces of toys and stacking things out there and seeing what sort of fits and letting the materials dictate. I remember going to a Goodwill by the pound and seeing this there's this girl that worked there, and I must have looked really strange because I would go there twice a weekend sometimes, and I was just looking for broken pieces of toys and all kinds of stuff. And one time I went to check out and she weighed it. She was like, what is it? Because if you're not familiar with Goodwill by the pound, in the United States we have this thing where you literally buy by weight, and it's the sort of things that aren't worth stocking in the main store. So it's usually just big plastic bins full of like filthy just clothes and busted toys and Christmas decorations and all kinds of stuff. And it's a little bit unhinged. I usually wear like rubber gloves when I go in there, but I walked up to her and I had this plastic grocery bag about halfway full. She said, what is it? And is it shoes, is it clothes? It's all kind of priced differently by weight. And I said, it's just broken toys. And she looked at me kind of weird and she was like, don't even worry about it. And so she just let me have it for free, which was cool, but it probably would have cost me like $2 anyway, which is why it's such a great source. If you think about buying stuff online, like 3D printed doors and kits that are sci-fi windows and railings and all kinds of stuff like that, nowhere near as cheap as doing something like recycling. And when you look at all the old white dwarfs and stuff, that's the kind of thing that they're doing. They have like an old spaceship toy or parts of a model tank or whatever. That's another thing I find. I find all kinds of like partially together model kits. And the scale really doesn't matter. It'll be like a 1/64 scale German tank. It's like, cool. I've got all these gears and pieces of tracks and all sorts of stuff that could be sci-fi anything. And that's the cool thing about doing stuff with any kind of science fiction or fantasy is there's not solid rules on what something's supposed to look like it is historically or in modern day. You can just look at something and go, yeah, that looks like science. That looks technical. Like that could be a fan or a pipe to something. I don't know. It just looks right to you. And so you just, like I said, let materials dictate and make it up as you go along. It's like this little green piece here that came off the garbage truck. That'd be a great sort of awning. Imagine some lights over that little porch area right there. I didn't plan that. I just looked at the items, looked at their shape, and said, oh, that'll work, Pringles cans. That's like a throwback, whether you're doing Warhammer Fantasy or 40K or Necromunda, that was like a favorite among White Dwarf and stuff, is take a Pringles can, turn it into a stone tower or a big chemical tank or whatever. So if I have materials and they're hollow and I think that they need some support, I like to use cheap materials like free styrofoam, rolled up cardboard, empty plastic pill bottles that are kind of rigid. I'll stick those inside of things to give them some more strength. In the chipboard there, that's from some old game box from the Goodwill by the pound. So that was really cheap as well. And then these, you'll see these in my other builds. These are some 3D printed bulkheads, some Necromunda bulkheads. If you look for Necromunda on the website Thingiverse, you'll find them there. I always have this dream that like I'll go to a Goodwill or a Goodwill by the pound or a Salvation Army or something, what you call a charity shop in England, and I'll just find a box of Warhammer there. I'll find some Combat Patrol starter box or something, and somebody working there will go, oh, these are toys, and they'll put it in some bin, and I'll go over to it and I'll open it up, and there'll be a bunch of partially painted minis in there. Some of them will be pewter, retro stuff, and it's a dream. It's never happened, but I still hold out hope. I know they find that stuff. I know people don't know what they have, and it ends up at Goodwill, and some dude at the back sorts through it and takes it. I'm sure of it. But I mean, it would even be cool to be just digging through the bins and see like just even one mini in there that's like, oh, there's a Warhammer mini, But like I said, I have found some really cool stuff. I found model kits. I found like little just plastic things that got like skulls on them and things that are perfect for crafting with. And my mind starts thinking this way all the time, to where I see all kinds of stuff and I think, oh, that would be great detail. So plastic straws and little boxes and little vents, little pieces of mesh, and so I hang on to it. I'm trying to organize it, but more importantly, I need to use it. I need to turn it into usable terrain. If things don't quite fit, you see I have these little pop-outs that are raised areas on top of this garbage truck part. I'm just clipping those off so I'll have a flat surface. So one time I was in Goodwill by the pound, and I was working at this job in this town where there was a Goodwill by the pound, and I would go there every weekend, and I always saw the same older lady that was there, and I know because it's weekend after weekend, she has to have seen me, and in her mind said like, this is a regular person as well. And one day she just like said, so what are you looking for? And I felt kind of weird, and it was like a scenario I'd run in my mind. I guess it's sort of like a self-consciousness of like, it's very odd what I'm doing, because some people are in there, they're trying to find blue jeans to sell online, or they're trying to find shoes, or they're trying to find whatever if they're a dealer, and I'm there and I'm going through like the kids bins, and I'm looking at toys and whatever. And so I just told the lady, I said, I have a YouTube channel and I build models. I build little model buildings and stuff like that. And she didn't seem to think it was weird at all. She goes, oh, okay. And she chatted with me for a minute, and then a couple minutes later she comes back and she has this cool little plastic, it was like a brick wall, it was part of some little train set. You'll probably see it in another build I do. And she was like, can you use that? And I was like, yeah, I actually can. So that was pretty cool. See this thing, it's some kind of like little Hot Wheels display box. It already looks like a shipping container or something, so I knew I wanted it. And like I said, I just want to shore it up with some free materials like scrap styrofoam, cardboard, stuff like that. And in builds like this, I'm really not doing a lot of measuring. I'm just eyeballing stuff, lining it up, seeing what fits together, and then making it up as I go. So the main tower part there needed a wall on the back. I think I used up all that free chipboard, so just using a piece of scrap foam board. And this was some kind of support for, I know I say this a lot, a model train toy, which those are great. Those are top 10 kind of items to look for. And I'm just continuing with that theme of that industrial X-shaped bulkhead kind of thing you see in Necromunda. So tell me in the comments if you guys are scratch building anything nowadays. I know a lot of people are 3D printing, and 3D printing is great. My opinion is it's a tool in your toolbox, and you should use it to integrate into your builds and stuff, just like all these other tools that you use. I just love reusing things. It's almost a point of pride to like point and say, you know what that used to be? That was actually a you know, whatever, that's actually part of a Nerf gun, that was part of this, that was part of that. I was watching a behind the scenes thing for like the original Star Wars, and that's what everything is in that. They're just pieces of, they ordered a ton of model kits and got a bunch of busted toys and electronic parts and just glued things together, and they're all Greeblies, they're all a bunch of junk, and it was so cool and inspiring. And sometimes when you're doing this stuff, it's like I'm like a one-man sort of Weta workshop. I'm just building a miniature movie set. But let me know if you guys are working on stuff. Let me know if you've ever scratch built terrain or followed any of the White Dwarf guides where they said take a Pringles can and build it into a tower or something like that. I found a ton of these cool construction toys, these different color construction toy things. Making platforms and things out of them. Right here what I'm doing is I'm finding out where those sort of ladders are on the tower. I'm going to have to get a Dremel tool and cut holes, cut squares for those ladder wells so a ganger can get up to the top and shoot from that vantage point. These are just some coffee stir sticks, and I'm trying to better integrate this red part to the rest of the tower, make sort of a piece of trim. It doesn't matter that it's wood if you don't put a lot of a wood grain on it with, say, like a wire brush, because when you paint over it, it will just look like metal. As I build this, I still don't know what the rest of the piece is going to look like. I'm just working off of the tower and the little L shape of it. And so there's the rough shapes of things, and then there's the little details like pipes and little squares and hatches and things. But later on I'll get into the even finer details, which would be sort of things like rivets and little wires and your sand and your grit and all of that. So just like the top part, I have to cut a little hole here so a ganger would have room to move up that ladder well. So I just mark it out with a paint pen and take some clippers and clip it away. And I can go back with something like some thin cardboard, like cereal box card, and clean that edge up and make a little square around it. Maybe I'll do some caution tape around it or something, or some marking, like a caution, like a sign or something, like don't fall through this ladder well kind of thing. I'm just trying to integrate these two pieces a little bit better. So just some chipboard, like really thin stuff, the back of a legal pad. And I realized that my tower was leaning back a little bit too much. So what I wanted to do was put down a bunch of white glue and then put down some hot glue. And the hot glue is going to attach it immediately, and the white glue is going to dry slower, but it's going to help attach it. And then the idea is, once that's all ready, pick it up, put it on top of it, and smash it down on it. And get it all good and plumb and square. So there I go, smashing it down, gluing it down. So what have you guys been working on? I haven't had a whole lot of hobby time lately, just other responsibilities. But I thought I would just do this one big build, and I'll just keep filming that and show it to you guys. I really like the way that this worked out. So this was some kind of plastic hatch for some toy, and I thought it would fit really well as a ramp up to that bulkhead door by that yellow square pipe. I think hobbies in general are much more important than people realize, and having a creative outlet is really important to me. And I think that improvising with these things and having sort of the feedback loop of trying stuff and having it turn out, just even little parts like this where I can look at this little ramp and go, yes, perfect, that's cool, and do that 50 times on one big build like this. And then have a finished product where people who aren't even into this kind of hobby could look at it and go, I don't know what that is, but that's impressive. That's cool. So if you guys like this and you want to see part 2, subscribe and hit the bell. You should get an alert when it comes out. I appreciate you guys sticking with me. And if you like this kind of thing, give me a like and give me a subscribe. And I'll see you again as soon as I can.